she can.
Thanks, Lena. I think I missed the last part of what you said, but I'm happy to give an overview of our program. So the SWE Scholarship Program is a conglomeration of many scholarships that are funded or endowed by individuals, groups, including SWE sections, and companies. So the scholarships are awarded to advance SWE's mission. We have over 200 scholarships that are awarded each year to those who identify as a female or a woman. There are a set of base qualifications for all the scholarships that can be found on the SWE Scholarships website. This includes GPA requirements and ABET accreditation. The GPA requirement is 3.5 out of 4.0 for freshmen and 3.0 out of 4.0 for upperclassmen and graduate students. The donors of each individual scholarship specify other eligibility criteria as well. That includes class year, major, school location, and other things. And the rubrics assess time usage, academics, community service, activities and leadership, work experience, and potential for success in engineering and computer science. So all that said, the rubric is not available to applicants, only judges, but some parts of the rubric are strictly quantitative, so numbers do matter in some cases, while others are subjective. Keep in mind that you can max out the points you can earn in a certain metric, and you can't make up the points you miss elsewhere. So if you had 30 leadership positions, that won't make up for a 1.8 out of 4.0 GPA. That's just something to keep in mind. To elaborate on the subjective parts, we have hundreds of judges, so everyone is going to be looking for something a little different when we evaluate essay and recommendation letters. Some judges focus on grammar, while others look for clarity of communication, desire, and that kind of thing. The best way to stand out from what we can see is to tell a story. So focus on providing solid examples. Judges like to read about how the applicant exhibited drive, passion, enthusiasm, initiative, etc. If possible, think about using the STAR method, so your situation, task, action, and results. We don't currently have any sample essays, but that's something that we're looking into. Aside from that, the important dates are all on our application page under SWE scholarships. For sophomores and above, the applications are due February 15th and references are due February 22nd. Freshmen, the application period starts March 1st and continues through May 1st, with references due May 8th. That's sort of my intro in a nutshell, and I'm happy to take questions.
Hey, Sarah, can you go over the difference between freshman scholarships versus upperclassmen or grad students?
Yes. So the difference between, really the main difference between these two scholarships is that the freshman ones are for incoming freshmen, and like what you would assume, and the sophomore and above are for those folks who are going into their sophomore and above years. In terms of the application, it's fairly similar, and the rubrics are only slightly different. It's pretty much the same things that are getting judged. And the main difference between the two in terms of eligibility is that GPA requirement. And again, if you have specifics, questions that we don't answer here, you can usually find the answers to eligibility requirements on the scholarship website. So if you go to the SWE website, look for scholarships, and then go over to, there's a bar on the right that has a bunch of different links. And one of them is the eligibility requirements, a document for each, the freshman requirements, and then also the sophomores and above. I also discovered that we have some really useful videos on the SWE's YouTube channel. So if you go to YouTube and you search for SWE scholarships, you should come up with 3 different videos. There's one on Am I Eligible, which talks about different eligibility requirements. And then there's part 1 and part 2 of the application process.
Hi, Sarah. This is Margaret. I have a question. Do you have any tips for, folks looking to see like which scholarship would be the most applicable for them? There's a long list on the website. Is there any like better way for them to search for that, or should they just kind of click through and read each?
So on the website, there should be a search feature. When you go and look at the different scholarships that are available, you should be able to refine them based on requirements. I have to go in and double check that, but I'm pretty sure that you can do that. And besides that, I would just it would be going through each of the scholarships and seeing what the eligibility requirements are specifically for each one. Because as I said, the qualifications are besides the base qualifications are all decided by the people who have funded or endowed these scholarships. So there may be specific things that you need to look out for. I see there's a question in the chat. Scholarships are awarded for the full academic year. There may be some scholarships that are only a semester, but generally these are full academic years.
Hey, Sarah, I don't know if I missed this earlier, but can you go over the deadlines for when the freshman application is due and when the sophomores and above application is due?
Yes, absolutely. So again, all the important dates, if you forget them or whatever, are on our website. Freshman applications start March 1st and continue through May 1st, and the references are due May 8th. For sophomores and above, the applications are due February 15th, so coming up very soon, and references are due February 22nd. So those are your letters of recommendation. And if you look at the YouTube videos, it really helps if you've never gone through this process on how to complete the applications, and it does give you some tips and tricks in those videos too. One that I thought was useful was when was to start the letters of recommendation early. So all you have to do when you apply is put in your reference contact info and send that off, and then they can be working on those recommendations while you continue finishing your application. And then the sooner you get those letters of recommendation, that process started, the better it's going to be for the recommenders to write those reference letters. It'll give them more time as well. You don't want to wait until the last minute.
We have a follow-up question for recommendation letters. So Danielle asks, if someone she hasn't worked with, a student she hasn't worked with in the past year, were to ask her for a recommendation letter, would it be better for the student to seek someone who's worked with her in the past year, or does it matter?
That's a good question. If you know the student, and like you can attest to their work habits or work ethics, how they are as a person, anything like that provides some really good insight to the candidate. The if you feel like there's someone who could have more, has specifically worked with that person, they could also write a letter of recommendation. But I mean, it could go either way. I mean, the letters of recommendation, there's one that's specifically for someone who has experience with the person in terms of their work ethic and academics and that sort of thing. And then another recommendation can be on the person, right? So can talk about them as I guess more on their personal side, I guess. Does that make sense?
Yes, that's helpful. Thank you.
Okay.
So we have a question from Miriam, and her question, she linked a scholarship in the chat, but towards the bottom, below number available, 5, class, sophomore, junior, senior, there's a line that says major E slash or like comma ET. She's asking what do those acronyms refer to? E and ET.
Very good question. I can make a note and try to figure that out. Me looking at it, I would say that E stands for engineering and ET would be engineering technician or engineering technology, something like that, as opposed to, you know, another like science or other kind of major. It could also just be, you know, saying that all majors within engineering are applicable. It could also, I would say it wouldn't be just electrical because I feel like that would be abbreviated EE, but I can double check that for you.
Yeah, I noticed I went on a few other scholarship pages and that line varies. Sometimes it says all, sometimes it says any major. So it probably refers to all engineering / engineering technology.
That's what I would assume, but I can double check it.
Could you go over some of the guidelines for international students who might be interested in applying for scholarships?
I'm sorry, can you repeat, please?
Could you go over any sort of, so for international students who might be attending school in the US, are there any sort of things they should keep in mind when applying to scholarships?
Great question. So as long as they're planning to attend a US-based school, that's not a problem. Some scholarships may require citizenship, so that's something to look at and keep in mind with each of these, but it's not an overarching requirement for these scholarships. The main part right now is that the school is US-based. We are looking at expanding to international in the future, but that's a work in progress. So at this point, we're talking US-based schools. The hardest part may be understanding that the US educational system emphasizes certain things that may not be prioritized as strongly in other countries, with regards to GPA and that kind of thing. We score on academics, community service, activities and leadership, work experience, and potential for success in engineering and computer science. So I would suggest thinking about what experiences would fit into those categories. So that's what I can give you right now. Does that help?
Yes. And currently there are no scholarships specifically for international students who might not be studying in the US.
That's correct. They would be for US-based schools. So international students studying in US-based schools. Again, we are looking into the future and would like to expand to international schools, but we have not done that yet. that's a work in progress.
Thank you.
I see in the chat there's another question regarding GPA. Mariam is asking, if we change schools, does the GPA of the current school count as to meet the 3.0 eligibility requirement?
So when you apply, you would provide your transcript, your unofficial transcript, so that you may want to include, if you've changed schools, you may want to include, both of them, whatever's applicable. Because I think it would be the GPA as a whole. To meet that 3.0 eligibility requirement. Yeah, so I would assume that it's a cumulative. That's something that I will find out.
Thank you. And then one follow-up question in the chat as well. Do the scholarships only apply for people who identify as female?
At this point, yes. Those who identify as a female or woman.
As a follow-up question, are there plans to make it more inclusive?
This is something that we are actively looking into. Yes. Because we would like to be inclusive, both in gender identity as well as international. So again, these are things that we are actively working on. They will not make it this year, but we are working on these.
That sounds really exciting.
Yeah, we're really excited about it. Lots of changes, but it's, yeah. So I'm only sad that we weren't able to make the changes for this year, but they think they're coming. So.
Sarah, for people who are a little bit newer to SWE, can you clarify if you have to be a SWE member for all of the scholarships, and then also explain a little bit more specifically about what a section or a sponsor scholarship is?
So I believe that you are able to apply for a SWE scholarship without being a SWE member. It doesn't hurt to be a SWE member. But I do not believe that's a requirement. Again, all of the eligibility requirements are provided on our website. I believe there was a link to it in the chat. If you go to swe.org/scholarships, that will help you as well with any of these eligibility aspects. The last part of your question was about sponsored scholarships. Is that right?
Right. If you go to the /scholarships page, there's kind of a breakdown for section or sponsor scholarships, as well as like the full list of more broad scholarships.
Yes. So do you want to know, like, what specifically would you like to know about those?
Just like a general description. I think some people just might not know what that means if they're a little bit newer.
Okay. So my understanding is, as I said, that many of these scholarships are funded and endowed by individuals. They're funded by groups that include SWE sections. So other SWE sections could endow or fund a scholarship. And also companies or organizations often will fund or endow a scholarship. And so you can specifically search for those kinds of scholarships if you would like. Each of these has the same base requirements, but then they might have different, like more specific requirements for each of these scholarships based on whatever the section or company or individual would like to highlight in their scholarship. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think. Thank you.
A more general question I have is how many scholarships can you apply for and how many can you be awarded in one scholarship cycle?
In one scholarship cycle, you fill out and complete one application, and by filling out that and completing that one application, you are assuming that you're eligible for all the scholarships, you're considered for all of the available scholarships. You are only allowed, each individual is only awarded one. So if you receive a scholarship for one scholarship, then someone else will get a different scholarship. So you can't get a different, you can't get more than one scholarship in one cycle. But you can apply the following year again, and maybe you get a different scholarship.
But can you apply for more than one in like one cycle?
You're applying for scholarships in general when you submit your application. So all of the scholarships that you are eligible for, you will be considered for.
Oh, okay.
Provided that your scholarship application is complete.
Are the scholarships only for those who are pursuing their first degree? What if they already have a bachelor's and they're pursuing a second bachelor's degree?
That is a really good question. I would, I think it's just your first degree. Though if you're applying for as a graduate student and you're going into graduate school, that you can also apply. I'm not sure if you also can apply if you have a gap in your education. So if you finished 2 years of your like undergraduate degree and then took a year or two off and then finish or are trying to finish, if you have a gap like that, there are some scholarships that are applicable for that. I'm not sure about second bachelor's degrees though.
Okay, that's fine. We can release a list of questions that weren't fully answered, if that's okay with you, after the session. So we'll hopefully have an answer that we can share with the group afterwards.
Yes, absolutely. I want some of these ones that I was not able to answer fully. I would love to do some more research and provide better answers for you. So yeah, please do send them along, and we'll get answers for you.
All right, thank you. A similar question asked by Vanessa is if someone was awarded a SWE scholarship last year, are they still eligible for the same scholarship next year?
So the same scholarship, it depends on the requirements for eligibility for that specific scholarship. Scholarships in general, absolutely. Just because you were awarded a scholarship last year does not mean that you are disqualified in the future. So I would definitely recommend applying every year. If it's a multi-year scholarship, which I don't know if we have them, but if it is, then it's it depends on, again, it depends on that individual scholarship. And um, because these scholarships are funded by various different folks and entities, there are different requirements for each one. That's why we say there are these base qualifications, as I mentioned, which are listed on the website. But beyond that, there may be some specific requirements, specific details that are unique to each of these scholarships. So I definitely recommend going through and finding ones that you're interested in and making sure that you are eligible.
And for those people who just joined us, we're just doing a Q&A with Sarah, who is our representative from the scholarship program.
I see there's another question in the chat regarding references. And it says, do the references from the college have to be a SWE person, or can it be an engineering professor? The references do not need to be SWE people. Engineering professor is perfectly fine. And yes, it would be the current school GPA. Thank you.
I have a more general question on scholarships. In your experience, do any scholarships get unawarded? No, not unawarded. They don't get awarded because there are not enough applicants, or there are not enough quality applicants.
Some scholarships may go without an award for that year because there were not any eligible candidates. Again, each scholarship has different specific eligibility requirements, and if in a given year one scholarship there are no applicants that fit with those eligibility requirements, that scholarship may go without being awarded for that year. That's not to say it won't be awarded the following year or it wasn't awarded the previous year. It's just, it depends on the applications that we receive for that cycle.
Can you share a little bit about which scholarships or which majors or disciplines you would like to see more applicants from, to maybe help with that lack of qualified applicants?
I'm not sure of specific majors. It's more of I guess having diverse backgrounds and different experiences. I'm not sure how much in depth I can go into.
I have a question. Do we have to send in the official transcripts from the current school, or can we send in the unofficial? And do we have to send in the transcripts from all the schools attended, or just the current one? Because like they would already have all the credits transferred in like one transcript of the current school.
So it would just be the current school.
Okay.
Transcripts from the current school.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yep. And how important is community volunteer work and part-time work experience? Those are both judged. So think that's about what I can say on that one.
And do you need official transcripts or unofficial is fine?
Unofficial is fine.
Okay.
From what I know. Again, I would refer you to the website where we have the specific requirements and the process laid out there.
Okay, thank you.
Sarah, what is the process and timeline once you submit your application and the application period for your scholarship closes? What are the next steps in terms of hearing back?
So once the application period closes, we have our judges go through and review the applications, and then they rank them. And once all of the applications have been judged, then the scholarships are awarded. And I would have to look more specifically on when we would notify, because I'm not exactly sure when we would notify folks about the scholarship that they receive.
Does the awarded money go for like each semester, or does it go like half and half for like each semester, considering it's like a full academic year?
I am not entirely sure how the funds are distributed. That's something I can look into, whether it's a like kind of a lump sum at the beginning or if it's over the different semesters. I'd have to look into that. I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay, thank you.
Can you talk a bit about are there any expectations after a awardee gets their scholarship? So when I received scholarships, afterwards I had to write a letter of thank you. I think every semester that I received a scholarship, is there a similar expectation of SWE scholarship awardees?
I would say it depends on the scholarship that you receive. Again, each of them has different requirements, different eligibility criteria, and uh, different ways to handle it. So that's something that would be specific to your scholarship. What we ask is that awardees maintain a 3.0 out of 4.0 GPA, as far as I'm aware.
Do you have any general advice aside from just sounding really passionate in your essay for how to stand out in the application process?
So as I mentioned in the intro, the best way to stand out is to tell a story. Showing that you're passionate. So a lot of times the essays are very positive. There are lots of positive words that are just thrown out. But what really sits well with judges is to have read a story. Tell them a story. Focus on solid examples of your experience. You can use the STAR method, as I mentioned, the situation, task, action, and results. And judges really like to read about that. They like to read essays that are passionate. They exhibit drive, enthusiasm, and initiative through their experiences, through a story.
We have one question from Vanessa. If we don't get awarded a scholarship, will we get feedback?
At this time, I don't think we provide feedback.
So It sounds like there's a panel of SWE judges who judges the awardees. Um, so I remember for certain scholarships, they're tied to a company or to a individual. Will either the company or the individual be part of the selection process, or does it vary?
I don't believe they are part of the selection process. No. With some of them, we award or we kind of nominate folks for award and then send them um, to the companies for sort of approval. But I think that's as far as it goes in terms of them being involved in the process.
All right, do we have any last questions? We know it's at the hour, although we started a little late, that's okay. This session will be recorded, so if you know someone who's interested in learning more about SWE scholarships, please refer them to the video after we post it online.
I just have one last question. So if we have like been involved more in the national SWE and not the SWE at our college, is that fine, or does like the application require us to be more involved in the SWE in our college?
SWE involvement in general is encouraged. It does not need to be specifically with your section at your college. And I would like to reiterate that you can find out a lot of information from the scholarships website. There are a lot of really useful links there. And that is your definitive resource for all things related to scholarships. So that includes eligibility requirements, as well as a listing of the available scholarships and all of the criteria that's involved with those. So I would definitely encourage you to go and visit that and explore that website. That will have a lot of information.
Is there an email address that we can send additional questions to? And then also, like Lisi said earlier, we have this session recorded and we'll follow up with the questions that we weren't able to answer today.
Yes, there is a, we have a specific scholarship chair email address. It's scholarship-coordinator@swe.org. If you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to the scholarship coordinator, and we will get you the answers that you need.
Alrighty, well, if there aren't any questions left, I will go ahead and let all of you guys go. Patient with us as we created a new meeting link, and I hope you guys have a good rest of your weekend.